Hi guys, welcome to SJ Masterclass, a podcast where two friends and avid readers are working to build an encyclopedia of the universe written by Sarah J. Maas, one series at a time, cross-referencing as we go through the texts. We will discuss themes, characters, plot points throughout the Maasverse, and wherever our conversation takes us. This week, we're looking at chapters 32 through 35 of A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm Kat, one of your hosts, an ER nurse by day, a cat mom, reader, and knitter the rest of the time.
Hi everyone, I'm Rev, also an ER nurse, also a knitter, a lifelong reader, and a dog mom. Each episode, we're going to start with a brief review of the chapters that we're focusing on, and then we're going to get into all the details. This podcast will be extremely spoiler heavy for both ACOTAR and SJM's other works, so listen at your own risk. We're excited to be in the world's best book club, and we hope you guys want to join along. Kat, do you want to get us started with the chapter review and catch us up on where Feyre is and what all of our friends are up to?
Absolutely. Last week, we ended the chapters with Feyre returning from the human lands to Perithian, going to the Spring Court, and finding it empty. Chapter 32 starts with her finding it not only empty, but ransacked, and she kind of turns back into hunter / tracker Feyre, starts walking through and figuring out Lucien and Tamlin probably walked out of the Spring Court because of this and this and this. And she runs into Alice, who is apparently the only one left in the Spring Court. I don't think there's anyone else there. Alice tells Feyre about Tamlin's curse, who Amarantha really is, what happened between her sister Clythia and the human Jurian. She tells Feyre how the High Lords lost their power. She's kind of this fount of information. And she tells Feyre more about how Lucien lost his eye, and the two of them set out to go under the mountain. On the way, Alice warns Feyre not to drink the wine, not to make any deals. Don't trust her senses. Feyre goes into the cave and she's caught by the Ator. She's then brought before Amarantha, where Tamlin is sitting beside Amarantha and doesn't even acknowledge Feyre. Amarantha's wearing a bone necklace and a ring with an eye in it. Feyre declares her love for Tamlin. She sees Claire Bador's body tortured and hanging from the ceiling. She makes a deal with Amarantha for Tamlin and his court's freedom. Complete one task each month for 3 months or solve a riddle. Lucien sneaks into the cell and helps her, tells her what actually happened to Jurian, that he's still alive. He's actually the eyeball in the ring. She's then brought before Amarantha again, and Amarantha demands her name. She refuses. Amarantha has Rhys use his powers to force Lucien to tell them Feyre's name. This makes Feyre break. She gives her name. And Amarantha tells her the riddle that she needs to solve. And then the games begin. Rev, why don't you get us into some nitty-gritty details?
I want to start with something that I just wrote down. Alice tells her don't trust her senses. Mm-hmm. What has Alice told her the entire time that Feyre has been in Spring Court? Trust your senses. Listen to what you hear. Yes. And right now she's like completely opposite. Like, don't trust your senses, don't trust anything. But what do you think about that? How different is that? Any thoughts?
It's interesting because at one point Feyre thinks she saw Tamlin sitting beside Amarantha, and all I could think was that is the sense of sight, and we know later on that she is deceived by this, and then tag on to that we know Amarantha is known as the deceiver. So how much of what Feyre sees is she actually seeing? How much can we trust under the mountain? Because we are, again, as we've said for 6 episodes before this, all of this is through Feyre's point of view. All of this is through what she is perceiving. Maybe some of this isn't the reality.
I do remember you saying the part about how the person that is sitting next to Amarantha is not actually Tamlin. And the things that she does see, though, she doesn't know what she's seeing, smelling, hearing. She sees Claire Bador, though. Mm-hmm. Like strung up and like hung on a wall or something, and it's like
Hung and
I would think it
burned
would
and
smell
tortured.
bad. Yeah. So, quick question. Do we trust that?
Yes, I do.
You do. You don't think Claire Bedore actually got burned down, like, in the house? It's really, really messed up when, like, Alice, the person who tells you, trust your senses, and Feyre hasn't. But then we get into where she now shouldn't trust her senses. Do you trust your senses? Do you not?
Well, but there's a difference in trusting your senses, as in what do I hear and what am I seeing, versus multiple people referencing the same thing. So that, I think, takes the perspective out of you. So at one point, Amarantha says to Rhysand, I thought that was the human you saw. And he's like, they all look the same to me. So now we have two other sources saying there is a body hanging from that ceiling, versus Tamlin sitting there. Other people will see him, yes, but could he be looking at her and she doesn't realize it?
Tamlin just seems like he's like a blank check. There's a nothing happening with Tamlin while he's sitting there.
If I recall, and I'm probably wrong about this, I think when Tamlin and Feyre end up in the closet, I think that's going to be next episode, or it's in the last episode, and he smudges her paint. And he's like, I couldn't show any kind of affection for you. I couldn't show how much I wanted to talk to you, even though I really wanted to, because then Amarantha would get really mad at you even more. And so he's purposely trying to be like, nope, I don't care about her. But it's also interesting because when we're talking about her senses and what she's seeing, we say again on page 295, that small part of me that had again become trivial and useless noted the carvings weren't just ornate designs, but actually depicted fairies and high fae. We're seeing the artist in her coming out again. That is one of her senses, but it's not what you would think. That's not what you would anticipate someone who's being dragged before the big bad of the story.
To take this one step further, on page 278, when Alice is telling Feyre about the Beauty and the Beast, a curse that even I failed to see. She kind of knew something was up. She never asked. And I wonder is she going to trust herself, or is she not going to trust herself moving forward? She has been proven to be right to not trust her senses, right? The puka. And all of these other monster beings that she encounters. Don't trust your senses. Then she gets here and she sees Claire Bedore hanging on the wall. Alice is giving her all these mixed signals that, first of all, trust all of your senses, and she doesn't when she's in Spring Court. And then now Alice is like, don't trust your senses, but this is the time that she does.
I think you're right. I think it's really interesting that we have Alice at one point for a majority of this book. You know, we are 3/4 of the way through. And for the first 75%, Alice is saying, use your ears, listen, pay attention, listen to all these things. And then it's almost like, because Feyre's going into another world, right? You have the human world, you have Prythian, and now we have Under the Mountain. The rules are completely different. The High Lords are trapped there. Power dynamics are different. Now the wine is different. Now you don't trust your senses. Following this even more, Alice is like storyteller mode. Why is Alice, if we're having this conversation, I'm going to tell you about Amarantha, I'm going to tell you about Jurian, I'm going to tell you about Lucien, I'm going to tell you all of these things. And when we're reading these first couple chapters, she was the never fading flower. Now she's the deceiver. She did this. She did this. And then suddenly Alice becomes so angry. She snaps at Feyre. Her eyes are hard. She's baring her teeth. She's laughing harshly. On page 286, you could have broken it, meaning the curse, she snarled. It's almost like flip of character that went from being motherly to angry. And I almost wonder if part of that anger is in these warnings where she's like, you know, when you're mad at someone, you're like, don't be out late. Don't be doing this. Don't be doing this. and she just kind of throws her to the wolves. I think Alice as a character in these 2 chapters that we see her are different from the Alice that we saw for the first 30-something chapters. With Alice, she is angry. And I think at the end of Lucien in the last chapter chunk, he was disappointed. Like, he looks at Tamlin and says something like, you couldn't wait a couple of days. We learn that those couple of days were really important because there were only 3 more days left in the curse. With what we know, with what we've read, is Alice's anger at Feyre appropriate?
I think it is appropriate. And the reason I think it's appropriate is because we have already seen Lucien be like, girl, I'm disappointed you didn't even ask more questions. You didn't even figure the thing out. And then we know that she's disappointed in herself. I should have asked more. So I think that like everyone is realizing that Feyre is smart enough to figure this out. So the reason we didn't get there is because why? It all boils down to she didn't ask enough questions. They tried to give her enough information. Alice tried to have patience with her and say, use your senses, use your listening. Everyone did their best. And the only person who's failing to meet the expectation is Feyre. And I think she realizes that of herself. Now she can no longer help her family because if the blight comes into the human lands, she realizes she can no longer help Tamlin, the one that she says multiple times that she loves in this big chapter chunk. And she's also letting everyone else down, like all the way down to Alice, who's taking care of her nephews. So should Alice be angry with her? Yeah, I think so. So in the future, if we somehow make a way out of this and we survive this, be better. That's what I interpret this as.
I agree and I disagree. I agree because you're right. Feyre doesn't ask questions. And at some point she doesn't have to ask questions because Lucien and Alice are telling her everything. After the surreal, they just tell her information. She doesn't even have to ask. But at one point, she's in the carriage before she goes to goes to the human lands, and she thinks, I should say I love you. I feel it, but I should say it, but I'm a human and I'm going to die. I don't know if he loves me. He's got other things to be concerned about. How much of the blame falls on Feyre and how much of it falls on Tamlin? At one point, Feyre's thinking, he stopped trying. He stopped giving me compliments. He stopped doing things. It's a 2-way street. But also, so like that's one part where I'm like, I don't know that Alice's anger is completely fair to be only on Feyre. My other part of it is Feyre has been lied to since chapter 4. She was taken from her family by someone who is the established villain of the human world and told, I'm taking care of them. It's fine. She can't communicate with them. She doesn't know if they're okay until she goes home. So
You're talking about her family.
Yes. So he has lied to her. He's kidnapped her. He's keeping her from the people she knows. He's kept her kind of secluded away from all of the other Fae because the only ones she sees for the first 15 chapters is him, Lucien, and Alice. The lies just keep piling on. Is it any surprise that she's not questioning this love? And how dare Alice be like, you could have fixed it. You were the one that messed this up. Even at one point when later on, Lucien's like, well, I guess we don't have to lie to you. Alice tells her that the treaty wasn't even a thing, that she can kill as many Fae as she wants to. Everything has been a lie. How much of this relationship is a lie?
So I think that when you realize as a person you've been lied to, you stop trusting everyone and you just start asking questions. It doesn't mean that you can trust the answers 100%, but at least you are taking an active role instead instead of continuing to be passive. Like at this point, guess what you get to do, Feyre? This is now not just about what the fairies are telling you and the outcome of the Fey world. This now has to do with your family. You start asking questions, and she does. So like, I do think Alice is right to be annoyed with her, because Alice is worried about her own family. But we are where we are now. Feyre needs to pick it up and do what needs to be done. It doesn't matter what happened. Go for your pin.
I have two. On 281, Alice says, "You could have been the one to stop her. Her eyes were hard upon me and she bared her teeth. They were alarmingly sharp." And then Feyre says, I didn't know, because how could she? And Alice says, "I know you couldn't know. It was part of Tamlin's curse." But then when you're saying, now that Feyre knows she needs to pick up and do it, that's exactly what she does. Okay, tell me how to get to under the mountain. She's asking all of the questions now that someone is finally telling her the truth. We think it's the truth. How much of this could be a lie? Because even on chapter 33, I think it is, Alice says, "There's part of this I can't tell you because my bones are crying because I'm trying to tell you things I can't tell you." So how much of what she's telling is the truth? It just feels like Alice's anger in chapter 32 is misplaced. It's almost like she can't...
Where do you think she should place the anger?
I think because Tamlin is no longer there, and the other half of this equation is Feyre. Well, I can't yell at Tamlin. First of all, he's the High Lord. Second of all, he's not here. In walks Feyre, who could have fixed it. She had the opportunity. But also, she didn't know she needed to. And, take it from the human side, would any other human, Nesta wouldn't have, Elaine wouldn't have, Claire Bedore wouldn't have, none of them would have given the Fae the time of day, because the Fae are the bad guys. It feels like a very high Fae / Fae thought process to not even consider that. The humans were slaves, and Alice is angry that one of them isn't falling in love with them.
We know who Feyre is as a human. Is this a growth arc? So she's not that person yet. She's only that person in A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Wings and Ruin. How many times have you and I said Feyre let herself go soft when she got to Spring Court, right? We know that when Feyre goes back to the human lands, that she gets stronger again and regains her strength and becomes that Feyre that we meet in chapter 1. I think Alice is disappointed that even as easy as things were, and Tamlin tried to make things easy so that she could have this life of luxury and then be able to fall in love with Tamlin, I think Alice is still like, you know who you are and you let yourself go soft. And so I can't say that Alice's anger is misplaced and that I think it's wrong, but I can say, I don't know, I think it's like 50-50. I think that Feyre deserves that someone is mad at her for letting her go soft, because sometimes that's just what you have to do in life, is sack up and just figure it out. And even if Tamlin was lying to her, like I've always said, why did she like Lucien and not like Tamlin? Like, she should have had her guard up. She should have been aware of everything all the way from the beginning, and she let her guard down. I think that's along the same lines of why Alice is mad at her.
I think the way I'm taking her anger is, and I think this is the only way that I can accept it, is it's like when someone is coming to visit your house and they break a glass or a mirror or something like that. You get really frustrated for just a moment because you had that glass on a counter, or you had this over here and the person accidentally broke it. It's out of your control. She doesn't have any control over it, but I don't think she is taking into consideration the human side of things, and I think that is the bias of the Fae. I don't think they will ever think How many times have we said it already? Tamlin does not realize that the humans can appreciate art, that the humans can do this, that the humans can do that. I just don't think it comes to her to realize that this might not be as easy and that there might be something holding Feyre back.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that totally.
Where else do you want to move on to?
Oh my God. We spent like 25 minutes just talking about that one thing.
I know.
I have 2 points that I want to combine into one.
Okay.
Amarantha is called the High Queen at one point in time. And I want to say, does this foreshadow the invention of a High Lady? But also the never fading flower that you mentioned earlier. The never fading flower, Amarantha versus Elaine. Please go for your pin.
So I'm going to respond to both of those. The first one, when you talk about how Amarantha is the High Lady of Prythian, or the High Queen of Prythian, at one point, I think it is in the third book, Amaranth says to Feyre that she wants Rhysand to be the High King of Prythian, and he doesn't want it. It's been a long time since I've read it, but I distinctly remember him saying, I never want to be that. And it never really sunk in with me, but is the reason he doesn't want to be it is because the person who was the previous high royalty of Prythian was the one who was assaulting him.
You know, it's kind of interesting. All these characters get put into positions of being a high something that they don't want to be in, right? Like Feyre has to be the leader of her family, didn't want it. Tamlin has to be the high fae of his court. Now we're talking about someone wanting Rhys to be the high king. All these people are put into positions of power that they don't want to be in. And I think historically what people say, the people that you want in positions of power are the people that don't want to do it, right?
My other point was, so we were talking about the never-ending flower.
Yeah. What does that even mean?
So I'm going to send you a picture. So we are going to put these pictures on our Instagram as well. So you will be able to see this.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a flower?
It's called the Amaranthus.
Amaranthus flower seeds.
It is,
and it's red like her hair.
So I got this from Fables of Aesop, and I'm just going to read this to you. An amaranth planted in a garden near a rose tree thus addressed it. What a lovely flower is the rose, a favorite alike with gods and with men. I envy you your beauty and your perfume. The rose replied, I endear, dear Amaranth, flourish but for a brief season, if no cruel hand pluck me from my stem. Yet I must perish by an early doom. But thou art immortal and dost never fade, but bloomest forever in renewed youth.
The never fading flower.
The never fading flower, who also is up against a rose.
Oh, I didn't even connect that part till you just said it. Ooh.
I guarantee you.
So good.
Sarah J. Maas knows of that fable.
Oh, of course she does.
That woman did not mistakenly have a rose and an amaranth in the same sitting.
That was not an accident. SJM. Every time you hit, thank you, you fulfill. I'm just going to say that.
Fulfills. And I think it's really interesting that, so this goes back to the last episode where we find out on page 280 that there is no blight. The blight is Amarantha.
And also, page 283, the treaty was a lie. Like,
yes.
What is happening here?
There was no provision in that, for that in the treaty. You can kill as many innocent fairies as you want and never suffer the consequences. This is what I'm saying.
What is going on?
This is what I was saying just now. Feyre has been lied to from the get-go.
There's no treaty. There's no...
No, there is a treaty, but there's no consequence for her.
It's all lies. It's all lies.
So going back
Trust
to
no one.
Go back to Alice's anger. How dare you be angry that Feyre isn't bending to your will? You have lied to her from the get-go. All of you have. Like, the Fae aren't forced to tell Feyre that the reason she's going to Prythian is because of the treaty. They could have said something else.
So does that mean that the whole thing between Tamlin and Feyre is possibly fake? Are we going... we flip-flop so many times on this. Is it real? Is it not? Is it real? Is it not? But it has to be not. Well, no. It doesn't mean he doesn't love her. But it means, like, all of these rules that he kind of presented to her don't really make sense. I'm going to do everything I can and tell you everything I can think of and invent to make you say this one thing so that Amarantha's curse does not get fulfilled.
Well, but with all of this in mind, on page 297, Feyre is under the mountain and she goes to Amarantha and says, "I've come to claim Tamlin, High Lord of the Spring Court." She is coming to claim the one she loves. Right before that, "I come to claim the one I love. I've come to claim Tamlin." So even though she knows these lies that have been told to her, she's still coming and claiming to love Tamlin. But also, within these chapters, she says, "I will not let Claire Bador's death be in vain." She's also doing this because if Amarantha gets powerful enough, she's going to be starting to invade the human world. So how much of this is love? How much of this is protecting her family? It's just so complicated.
It's like a watercolor painting. It is all smeared together. But what I really think is that you cannot negate the way that Feyre thinks that she feels just because it's been predicated by this false story. Doesn't mean she doesn't feel the way she feels. The way we all felt. We were all like,
yeah, we all rooted for
Tamlin, just like you said.
Yeah.
What else do you have to say about this topic?
I think that's all I have to say on Feyre and the lies and the anger. I've got so many other things I'd love to talk about, but what else
can I talk about? If we're talking about how Feyre loved Tamlin, let's talk about how Tamlin loves Feyre. Page 288. I have it. He had put me before his entire court. He basically sends her home knowing it is going to undercut Beauty and the Beast. He sends her home with all the jewels. I talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but like we are now seeing more and more evidence that he doesn't just a false love her, I guess is the way to put it. Like he's willing to let all of Prythian go down. Everybody. Every court, himself, Lucien, Alice's nephews. He's willing to let everyone go down. And Alice kind of supported it back then in the last chapter chunk. But like, he must love her. There is no reason to let her go home that fulfills the Beauty and the Beast outcome. So he must really love her. Please go for your pin.
Do you think if Rhysand had not come in on that day before Tamlin let her go, do you think he would have let her go? Because that is when Tamlin is like, oh no, now that Rhysand knows, Amarantha's going to know, and she's going to do horrible things to you because that's what she does, as evidenced by Jurian. And we know the relationship Amarantha had with Tamlin and how that would have just been picking at him even more to torture the human in his court. Do you think he would have sent her home if Rhysand had not shown up that day?
I think no.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I think
I
the
think
curse could have been broken.
Yeah. I don't think he would have sent her home. I think he would have kept her. That's such a terrible way to phrase that, but I'll say it. I think I how about I say it like this? I think he would have been happy that she was still staying at Springcourt. So, wow, now that I say that out loud, this makes me think it really is about him and it's not about her. Because if it was about her, he would have let her go home from the beginning after he made her family safe and blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She knows her family's taken care of. If he is already capable of doing that and he really cared about her, he knows how bad she wants to go home. I mean, just look at the thing that happens with the Puka. Like, she thinks it's her dad and she wants to go back. And then he would have let her go back and would have let them all be just happy and well off, as he had already given them the money. So clearly he doesn't need the money. You know what I mean? Like, it still wasn't about her. It was still about him.
Well, it was about her not being tortured. But I don't know that it was about love. But again, the first time you're reading this book, you are rooting for them. You want something to happen. You want him to respond to her. We were all, I mean, I can't speak for every reader. I was in it to win it for Tamlin.
But I mean, what I'm saying is, like, yes, he sent her home so that she wouldn't get tortured. But I don't think he would have done that had the threat of being tortured not been right there.
Then let's compare his actions and the Tamlin that we see in chapters 34 and 35, because that's really all we get under the mountain in this chapter chunk. Let's take his actions in these chapters and the previous chapters and compare it with what we see under the mountain, where he doesn't acknowledge her. The only time that he potentially acknowledges her is when his eyes widen and she thinks as if he were to say no. But then we have Rhysand on page 310 when he's confronted by Amarantha. And this is a scene where we are seeing Rhysand protecting Feyre, if you want to look at it that way, where he says, "Is this the girl you saw at Tamlin's estate?" And he's picking flecks off of his tunic, and he says, "I suppose."
Of course he is, because he always does that.
Right, because he always feels dirty. And then Amarantha says, "But did you or did you not tell me that girl was the one you saw? He stuffed his hands in his pockets. All humans look alike to me." And Feyre thinks, humans look alike? I didn't believe him for a second. He knew exactly who I was when he saw me that day in the manor. So even before Feyre had come back, Rhys was protecting her. Rhys was doing something. And I'm coming from the perspective that I don't think he thinks they're mates yet. But this third of a page shows more protectiveness than Tamlin has, and more acknowledging of her than Tamlin did. And then we find out in book 2 that he had gone into Claire Bedore's mind, so she never felt any of the torture. We see the good guy coming out later, but this is like the first little inkling that there's more to him than meets the eye.
I think that this does mean that he either, one, knows that they're mates, or two, it proves what we already know, and it's unfair that we've read so many far books ahead. about how he feels about humans, but he is doing for a human what Tamlin kind of vocalizes what he would want to do for a human.
This is, we know, as in you and I, and people who have read the series, that Rhysand fought in the human and Fey wars and fought with the humans. He was friends with Jurian back in the war. Like, there's a difference between him and Tamlin. This is where I'm wondering if Rhysand is like, she could have been the one, but she was too stubborn. He's still trying to be like, she was the one who could have fixed this. Is this him trying to keep her alive a little bit longer? Keep the hope alive? Is this whole book about hope? Like her father said in chapter 3?
I've heard you say this so many times. Why do you think that Rhysand thinks that Feyre is the one for Tamlin? What's going on there?
I think because on page 239, he says, if it's any consolation, she would have been the one for you, and you might have gotten away with it. A bit late, though. She's more stubborn than you are.
What I would like is for you to explain to me your thought process on this, because I think that Rhysand possibly knows that they are mates, but like, what is your thinking here?
This fat wants to be on this podcast so badly.
He is on the podcast already.
He is.
He's a guest star.
He's going to the other side of it now.
We're definitely editing all this out.
Okay, so I think the reason why I struggle with thinking that Rhys knows she is his mate is because for me, it takes the impact and the significance out. So we're jumping way ahead. This is on page 415. His eyes locked on mine, wide and wild, and his nostrils flared. Shock. Pure shock flashed across his features at whatever he saw on my face, and he stumbled back. Actually stumbled. For me, that is the moment he realizes that they are mates. That is when he feels the mating bond snap into place. So for me, all of these other times is him trying to get out from under the mountain. She is his only hope to no longer be Amarantha's whore. But now they are on this razor thin edge. She is now put in a new opportunity for at least Tamlin's court to get out. That is why I struggle, where I think he does not know. He doesn't realize until she becomes a Fae that she is his mate.
Sure. I'm buying it. That's all the explanation I needed. I just wanted an answer.
Yeah. What do you want to move on to?
Okay. I have I think 6 more points that are pretty small. The first of all, what happens to the courts that Amarantha punishes? The day court, the summer court, and the winter court? Because I think that what happens in Crescent City happens thousands of years from now. And I think the day court corresponds to Lydia. Can we just say that we don't have to talk about it now? Or we can if you want to, but I want to remember this because she goes as day.
Well, she goes as day. So I'm making a note in my book, but also we know that she is a descendant of Aelin. So does that mean that Aelin is somehow related to the day court? But we also know that the autumn court has the power of fire, which both Lydia and Aelin have.
And autumn court is also Lucien.
And autumn court is also Rune.
Oh my
right?
God, there's so much to unpack here.
We've just done again, we're going to mention it every, this Charlie Day.
You just Charlie Dayed it.
Like, it's the red string's going everywhere.
Another thing, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
The Children of the Blessed on page 285. The day court, the summer court, and the winter court. There were humans who were foolish enough to enter their lands. Most of them young women who worshipped the fairy-like gods. These are the Children of the Blessed. I kept asking in earlier episodes, but why? Why do the Children of the Blessed keep coming here and doing the things they do? And you were like, well, it's kind of like when people like worship these gods and then, you know, they end up all killing themselves. But like, here isn't it a very clear example of how the courts are courting, if you will, these women and these Children of the Blessed to come and do their bidding. Any thoughts on that? It wasn't a question. Like I said, I don't have very many book club questions, but it's an observation.
Well, but then it goes on to say on 285, but Amarantha caught them all before they left these shores. So they all died anyway. Like, they were trying to become brides. They didn't know any better because nobody ever came back and said, nope, that's not what's happening. And Amarantha killed them all. But I think one of the things that I think is interesting about what you were just saying about the rebellion, this open rebellion, when we meet Tarquin, who is the High Lord of the Summer Court, if I recall, he is introduced as a young High Lord. When we meet Hellion, he is not introduced as that. He has been friends with the Night Court for centuries. And I can't remember how the Winter Court is introduced. The thing I remember about the Winter Court is that's where we get our second High Lady, because he loves his wife, which is a rarity amongst the High Lords. But I think it's just interesting the way that these court dynamics are being presented. And I want to know more about the Day Court, Summer Court, and Winter Court's previous High Lords. Like, who were they?
Page 287. Amarantha sent her minions into human lands to investigate the humans' strengths and weaknesses. I'm going to throw this out there. Mm-hmm. Do you think that this is the mercenary? And that's why she tried to, like, distract Feyre from knowing that this was a wolf? Is this Amarantha's doing, this mercenary that she sent out there and said, make sure she doesn't know that she's the person that could fulfill Beauty and the Beast?
Is that the reason why the mercenary tells her that the wolf is not a fae?
Exactly. That is my question.
That I did not think.
I mean, I've always said I think the mercenary is somebody sent from the future, but like after reading these chapters, I think that's why the mercenary says this is not a Fey wolf, because she's trying to make sure that Feyre doesn't get to the Spring Court, doesn't get to the Fey lands, whatever, so that she can't fulfill B&B plot, so Amarantha gets her way.
If she just keeps trying to keep all people, all humans, out of the Fey lands, because the mercenary is the one that tries to lead Nesta to the Fey lands and can't. That does make you think.
Feyre trusts Nesta so much that she tells Alice to go to her. Page 292. We talk about how Nesta is a good person or isn't a good person, especially a lot in the last episode, and people have their varied opinions about Nesta. Feyre trusts Nesta so much that she tells Alice to go to her if anything happens.
she says go to Nesta, not Elaine, not her father.
Right.
Like, I think this is one of those moments where you think you have to acknowledge it. Because I also wrote this part down. It's just really interesting that she's like, and she thinks Nesta would do it. I knew now, even if Alice and her boys terrified her, she would keep them safe.
Yeah, I have that highlighted. So I think that this is some foreshadowing.
Okay.
About how we can trust Nesta. And Nesta is presented in this book as like untrustworthy / trustworthy. Also, we know I'm biased because I've said it every single episode. Nesta is my favorite character in this entire series, along with Manon. But that's a different book series,
That's
right?
years
but like,
away.
even as Nesta is nasty Nesta, as I have called her sometimes, Feyre is still telling someone who's now being kind of an a-hole to her. Like, Alice is not being nice. And she still says, go to Nesta. So I think this is foreshadowing that we will see Nesta grow to become the person that we love, that everyone ends up loving. She's proven herself.
Sarah J. Maas puts these little, like, droplets in all of these books where it's like, Nesta is not the villain of this story. She is the one that Feyre can consider her nemesis. Her, I can make fun of my brother, you can't make fun of him.
Yeah.
Feyre
I will fight you if you talk S about my brother. If I talk S about my brother, I'm allowed to. Joel, guess what? It's on. Game on. You talk S about Joel, guess what? We're going to throw hands.
Right. Feyre can think these things about Nesta. We can't, but we are in Feyre's point of view, and we are proven time and time again in this book alone that she's thinking the wrong thing. And here's where she's like, I've been wrong. Nesta will do the good thing. I'm not
sorry
Elaine.
If my mission is to prove that everyone should love Nesta.
She's great. I mean, she's not great. She is a really strong character.
That was so good that you said that.
So I have one little thing I want to talk about. I don't know about you, but when I was reading about Feyre going under the mountain, so she has to go through this cave into, it sounds like almost like a city that is incredibly built, has incredible art that she talks about, has chandeliers. All I could think about was in Fellowship of the Ring when the Fellowship goes down to Moria. And if Sarah J. Maas did not at least have an inkling of that, it is so similar. And we know that the Under the Mountain is meant to be copying the Court of Nightmares in the Night Court.
I've never read this and thought about how in Lord of the Rings they go underground to Moria, and if I ever read this again, I'm never ever going to be able to unsee them going down into Moria. That's the way I'm going to see this for the rest of my life.
Same. Absolutely same. And I do have a little crossover because we're just coming off of Nesta and talking about Under the Mountain. So Amarantha is sitting on a black throne. The only other time I could find a black throne referenced was in Silver Flames when Lanthis is trying to convince Nesta to join him, give him her power, and she sees herself on a black throne. That's on page 548 of Silver Flames. Of all of her books, Maeve isn't on one. The King of Otterlin isn't on one. We never see one in Crescent City. Then I looked to the black rock throne beside her, and my arms buckled beneath me. It's on 296. There, lounging on a black throne, was Amarantha. And then later on a black throne beside her, was Tamlin.
I definitely think we need to pay more attention in A Court of Silver Flames when we start learning more about Nesta and about how much power she has. She has access to that mirror, the Ouroboros mirror, and there's the harp, and there's the mask, and there's a few other things.
One of the things that I also looked at was on page 285. It's during the time when Alice is talking to Feyre, and she says, others, if they swear allegiance, if they grovel and serve her, she allows them a bit more freedom to come and go under the mountain as they will. Obviously, she is talking about Rhysand. But this just reminded me of the way that Maeve treated the blood oath. I feel like, I mean, we've said this before, I feel like Amarantha and Maeve are, to steal the phrase, two sides of the same coin.
Two sides of the same coin.
I had to say it.
I tried to get it out faster than you, but I didn't. But yeah, like, they are so similar in their descriptions, in their actions, in their downfalls. I do have two things. First of all, this is the more important one. Page 311. Amarantha asks Rhys, hold this person's mind. Why does Rhys have to do it? Is Rhys more powerful than Amarantha?
Well, he is the most powerful High Lord. And
but why can't she do it?
She might not have that. I always took it to mean she didn't have the power because he has the Diamante power that can break people's minds. I don't think she has that capability.
So I feel like Rhys is more powerful than Amarantha.
I think he is. I think because we learned that he is the most powerful High Lord. So even as the most powerful High Lord, if she took 10% of their power, 50% of their power, he is still more powerful, but less powerful than her in the sense of the grand scheme of things.
But if he can hold someone's mind,
well,
I wonder why he couldn't hold her mind.
Doesn't he do that though? Now that I'm thinking about it, doesn't he say in book 2 that he was able to trick her and to make her think that he enjoyed being with her and that he would do things so that he could get certain privileges and would like kind of use that to creep into her mind, but because she was high fae and because she was fae, she could also recognize when he was doing it.
Yeah, I remember that.
But the person who he is holding, I want to talk about Lucien. What a surprise. This
I know. You hate him so much, so.
Right,
weird.
This is not my Lucien read. So we're going to kind of hover around pages 307, 308, and I'm going to end on 311 and 312. This is when he is in the cell helping her. She says, "You're trapped under the mountain too." This is to Lucien. And a grim nod. She summoned all the High Lords to her now, and even those who swore obedience are now forbidden to leave until your trials are over. He's not a High Lord. He could leave. I mean, we know he can't because he's being... But, like, the phrasing of that is weird. But what I was wondering is, could this be foreshadowing that eventually he becomes a High Lord? Calling it now.
Dude. Oh, yes. Of Autumn Court. So just like, I don't even. Oh, Cat, where have you gone right now? Ah! Oh my God.
That would be really cool, right? Because we know that
I mean, it'd kind of be okay.
Or even Dusk Court, because like now that's gonna come back into play.
No, Lucien is gonna take over for Helion.
But does that mean Helion's gonna die?
Sure.
No, I love him.
I know, but
He's Idris Elba.
This is like no one can Idris Elba, first of all. Second of all, this is Game of Thrones. Everyone is up for dying.
Sure, you're not wrong.
Anyone can die.
Then on 308, so the next
I'm
page,
so excited about this. I'm sorry. I can't get over it.
It's okay. Look, I told you, like, this is my last big thing. Okay.
It was so cool.
So on 308, Lucien is then talking about Jurian. So then he is the one who tells Feyre what the fate of Jurian. And that's where we find out that his ring his eye is trapped in the ring. He'll remain trapped, watching through it. He keeps his soul in his consciousness. A fitting punishment for what he did. That seems pretty bold because, I mean, he tortured Clythia, but is he saying that it's a fitting punishment because he betrayed his lover? Is it because he betrayed someone who thought that they loved him? I don't know. But we learned that she did not do the same to him. Even further down, he says, the guards are about to change rotations and are headed this way. Try not to die, will you? I already have a long list of fairies to kill, and I don't need to add more to it. Who's on his list? If we're doing Game of Thrones, is he Arya Stark? Does he have a list of names? And is Rhys one of them? And then let's just keep adding on to this. Lucien
vanished. Just vanished.
Vanished into the
I knew you were
going to
say that. He's winnowing.
He's winnowing.
He's winnowing.
I think the Autumn Court can winnow.
I mean, but only some of the Autumn Court, because the Autumn Court High Lord is not actually his dad.
But his mom is. So, can the Autumn Court winnow? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Finally, on 312, this is our first introduction to Eris, the oldest brother or the oldest son of the Autumn Court. About halfway down, she says, she's asking for Feyre's name. She says, I don't suppose your handsome brothers know Lucien. If we did, lady, we would be the first to tell you, said the tallest. He was lean, well-dressed, every inch of him a court-trained bastard. Probably the eldest, given the way even the ones who looked like born warriors stared at him with deference and calculation and fear. Eris is the one to watch, because I think he's going to get a Rhysand story if she keeps this series going. I want an Eris book so bad.
Well, I think that we are going to get more information about Eris when we get Moore's story. I think
I have a lot of thoughts and feelings. Yeah, for sure.
So and we all know, well, we don't all know, but I have told Cat multiple times about what I think about that. I think there's going to be another 2 books, and one of them's going to be 2 books and then 1 novella and blah, blah, blah. I've said that forever. And then SJM came out and said, I'm going to do 2 more books and maybe 1 more novella. So I feel like I was proven right, but we'll see. But I think when we start hearing more about more and more story, we are going to learn more about Eris, because they're so tightly linked that, like, you cannot learn more about more story and not hear more about, like, what more knew about Eris and their background and, like, how everything came about.
Well, and also by the time we get to, I think it's Silver Flame, he has, like, a room in the Court of Nightmares. Like, he has a relationship with Rhys, and I think someone says, I don't think you're as evil of a person as you put on. Now, my final question, 313 is where we get Amarantha's riddle. Did you know what the answer was when you first read this?
I can't remember. I think I did, and I think it was, like, a very easy to deduce. what the answer was. And because it was so obvious, if SJM would have made it less obvious, it would have been harder to come across, but also like then the impact of the answer wouldn't have been as important to the story. So like I think it all kind of goes hand in hand. It had to be obvious so that when you do a reread, you're like, oh, of course. It also had to be obvious so that it made the whole story make sense. It's supposed to be a fairy tale, right? If it's a fairy tale, then you know what the answer is gonna be. But like, yeah, I did know what it was. But it's very easy. It's very clues and like it's a fairy tale. So it's very easy to figure out what it is, right? Did you?
Yeah, I did. But I didn't realize people hadn't until when I first was reading this and went, or for like the first time I read it and went online and saw people being like, yeah, I didn't get it. I think because again, like you said, like I've read so many fairy tales. I understand like there's a covenant that happens when you are reading a romance that is going to be happily ever after.
HAE.
I mean, yeah.
This is why we knew what it was. We understand the assignment and we figured it out. Thank you.
This kind of makes me think on 310, if this almost feels like the nightmare that Feyre had, where the pale woman was demanding to know her name and then clawing out her throat. We had speculated that that was Amarantha. I feel like if it was, Feyre doesn't seem to recognize her or recognize the situation. So maybe it was just a nightmare. Or maybe it was part of Feyre's seer sight genetics. But then also she didn't recognize Alice and Alice was talking the same. So I don't know. What do you think?
I have a couple thoughts about this. First of all, if Amarantha is asking Rhys to control people's minds, and we've also speculated previously that Rhys is interfering or interacting with Feyre's dreams, is he potentially trying to shield, like put a shield between Feyre and Amarantha, that like Amarantha can't quite see Feyre, especially because we know she's already given him Claire Bador. So he's trying to protect Feyre. But then also he is protecting Feyre from seeing Amarantha so that when she gets there, she doesn't necessarily know, like, this is the chick that's been in my dreams. This is the big bad enemy. And that maybe allows her a little bit of solace because he's trying to protect her. Because again, I think that he already knows that she's his mate.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we already see him doing it in this same scene. Because this is the scene when he says, all humans look alike to me.
Yeah. And he's just like, I don't know. Sorry, my bad.
Anything else?
I have like 800 other things, but no, nothing else. This episode is already long enough.
Well, I think that finishes the episode then. Next week, we'll be reading chapters 36 through 40 of A Court of Thorns and Roses. And next week, we start the trials, the first trial. If you liked this episode, please like and subscribe below or wherever you get your podcasts. We can be found on Instagram at SJMAASTERCLASS and by email at SJMAASTERCLASS@gmail.com. And we want to hear from you. What did you think of this episode and what did you think of these chapters? What did you think about Under the Mountain? Let us know in the comments or down below. Rev, how would you like to edit this episode in about 15 minutes?
I would love to see you in 15 minutes. Do you maybe want to go grab some margs while we edit?
I could really go for a margarita right now.
Oh, okay. I will see you in 15.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.